I love Assassin's Creed. I've played all the games and I can't get enough of the music, the visuals, and of course the fantasy of playing as an overpowered stealth ninja throughout history. With the new Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, being set in feudal Japan, plus the fantastic Shogun show airing on Hulu that I desperately need to finish, I got to thinking, what if Assassin's Creed were a series? If you're a fan of the games, then you already know the 2016 Assassin's Creed movie was a big missed opportunity. I think Fassbender is a brilliant actor, and unfortunately the script wasn't good enough to actually capitalize on the leading man that they were able to secure. Somehow, how did they get Fassbender to do that? However, I have always believed that the best way to do live action Assassin's Creed is through a TV series. Don't get me wrong, I love movies as much as anyone. Heck, I love movies more than a lot of people. But a 2-hour runtime is nowhere near enough time to really delve deep into the creed, the convoluted story, and the motivations of our lead characters. I believe Assassin's Creed is built for a live action adaptation, but it's got to be in the form of a high budget series to really do the IP justice. So the next question really is, how do you adapt it? There's so many assassins and stories that span the entirety of human history. Which time period do we focus on? Which character do we follow? Is this going to be about an existing character or a new and original character? And my answer to you for all of these questions is simply yes. An anthology series is something that we don't see often anymore. For those unaware of what an anthology series is, think True Detective or Black Mirror. For this example, True Detective is actually what we should follow more closely. Each season of the show would tell a different story in a different time with completely different characters that are most of the time completely unrelated to each other. Assassin's Creed was literally built for this. Each of the games is set in its own particular time period, following its own story with its own set of characters. Now do that for seasons of television and we have the formula for a proper anthology series. Each season could follow an assassin's story in their own unique time. This way we don't have to escalate our stakes every season to the point where our protagonist ends up becoming the lead character of the entire franchise. And we still get to hop around history and tell unique stories without breaking canon or coming up with some convoluted reason why things from the game aren't translated directly into the show and vice versa. Now, there's two ways we could approach the idea of an anthology series. I like one of them a lot more than the other, but I'm going to state both, briefly explain how and why they would work, and then give you my opinion on the option I prefer. Option number 1, the Animus approach. For those unfamiliar, Assassin's Creed takes place in the modern day. To make quite a long story short, to be honest, we play as a modern assassin who uses a device called the Animus to see through the memories of past assassins in order to gain some intel for their current mission in the modern day. Mostly revolving around ancient artifacts called the Pieces of Eden.
Crucial.
These pieces have existed throughout time and hold tons of power that could change the world. Assassins and Templars, assassins' counterparts, have been in a shadow war for these artifacts since, well, forever, under various names and even before the formation of a formal Assassin's Creed. If the new show were to take the Animus route, we'd essentially have a new Desmond, the original lead character of the Assassin's Creed franchise, and each season of the show would sum up to our new protagonist delving deep into the memories of an assassin, either to learn skills or, their fighting style, or to gain some sort of advantage in terms of the inner workings of the Piece of Eden, or a mixture of both. At the end of the 3 or 4 seasons, our protagonist would have all the information needed to stop whatever the writers come up with and save the world. Or to prevent an apocalypse, again, because that's what we do every single Assassin's Creed game, prevent another apocalypse. First off, let's start with the negatives of this approach. How could this go badly for us? It's not really an anthology anymore. I mean, it kinda is. Each season would be based around a new assassin and a new story, but we'd have a common thread of our actual protagonist, being the person who's looking through these memories. So whilst we'd have different stories in each season, the overall story would remain the same, with the same group of characters built around that protagonist as well. So I guess you could call it an anthology light show. Another negative point of this is it kind of limits our storytelling. This one could go both ways, but if we're following a modern day protagonist looking throughout memories for specific information, that means that each assassin would need to serve a specific narrative purpose. That could limit the writers, honestly, because maybe there's a really good idea for a cool Assassin's Creed story that's relatively low stakes, or at least isn't is very disconnected from the established story. You wouldn't be able to include that in its own season because it would literally just be a filler arc for the main narrative. I don't know about you guys, but a whole season of filler just doesn't sound fun at all, and it doesn't sound like a good use of your time either. Next up, it's a difficult structure. This approach is great, but it has the risk of breaking the momentum of the stories being told. Imagine being left on a huge cliffhanger in either the modern day story or the assassin storyline, just to get pulled into the opposite story for half an episode or maybe even a whole one.
We were not supposed to leave.
Yes, we were.
We have to go back, Kate. We have to go back!
The pacing could suddenly become very jarring, as people will be invested in one story and just yearn for the show to get back to what they're interested in. This happened for me the entire time I played Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I didn't care about Abstergo Industries. I don't think anyone did. I just wanted to get back to the Jackdaw with Edward and Adewale and the rest of my crew. I have a feeling that game fans will feel the exact same way, but it will be a series. There is a fix for this, and that is ensuring that both the assassin story as well as the modern day story are engaging to the audience. But that is much easier said than done. Not impossible, don't get me wrong, it's just really difficult unless you have some really good writers steering the ship. Now on to some positives of this approach. First off, we will have a really focused story. This is the inverse of my last point, but you can't make a season of TV that is filler, so that means that the writers of the show will be forced to make every assassin and their story serve a narrative purpose. I love that. Clear, concise storytelling takes the cake any day. Enough said, next point. They can't drag the show on forever. This is similar to my last point, but I really want to stress this. A lot of times shows become successful and end up getting dragged on for so much longer than they need to be. But using this approach to making the show means that the series can't be dragged on forever. If there is no ending in sight for the modern story, people will stop watching and you've ruined another live action Assassin's Creed project. So let's give the show a proper beginning, middle and end, built up in a meaningful and satisfying way. Okay, so that pretty much covers the first way to adapt this anthology-style Assassin's Creed show. Now, let's discuss the second way this could happen, and that is quite simply, the traditional approach. I couldn't come up with a better way to phrase it, to be honest, but this approach essentially means that there is no modern day at all. Every single season of the show would be set in a new time period without the overarching narrative of a modern day story to tie it down. Absolutely zero threads tying the series together. A true anthology series. Growing up, I always remembered hating the modern day segments of the game when Desmond was the lead character and when he wasn't the lead character. It was always so annoying to me to have a cliffhanger in the plot of the assassin story just to be forced to play as Desmond or sit through some of his cutscenes. This approach essentially gets rid of that, allowing the show to just focus on the assassins for the entire season. Think of the possibilities that carries. Each season would be a reset, a new status quo, brand new story for us to see on screen about an assassin's life, or maybe just a specific assassination that they had to carry out and what it really meant for them. So let's start off with the negatives of that. Number one, the Hollywood effect, I like to call it. If this were to be a big hit, and let's be honest, it would be a big hit, we would never see the end of this show. It could literally go on forever, even past the point where interesting ideas are being explored. This show could easily become just like some of the recent games, a yearly quota that has to be met, regardless of the quality. And whilst I love this approach so much, in the back of my head, the idea of a show that is built to go on endlessly absolutely spoils all of the fun I could have with it. Provided the show is in the right hands, it'll end when it's ready to end. But that sort of thing, especially with an IP as big as Assassin's Creed, that never really happens, unfortunately. My next point is inconsistency. Based on how anthologies normally work, it's safe to assume that each season will be created and held by a different team of writers and directors. This leads to the real possibility that some of the seasons will be largely better and worse than others. Now, this lack of consistency could lead to some great internet debate, don't get me wrong. The problem is, the varying quality could see audience numbers vary very greatly. Think about it. If someone makes a terrible season of Assassin's Creed, the next maybe incredible season might not get made, as the production company could decide the show isn't pulling enough viewers based on the terrible season that just happened. Look, this point isn't super solid, it really does depend on how things go, but the reality is that we've seen these things happen before, and varying quality of anthology series has been the death of many anthology series. Now on to the positives. The event effect. The really positive side of doing things this way is that now each season isn't just a new season of a cool show. It's an event similar to the release of a new video game, or honestly like an MCU movie in its peak. Think about it. The first season of Assassin's Creed is a huge success. The secrecy of the next project is on the level of Marvel at its peak. Slowly cast details are released, the internet speculates about the time period, maybe everyone thinks something from the games or the novels will be adapted. Then the trailer drops and everyone who is a fan of the games or the show has all eyes on it. Heavy Spoilers is making breakdown videos and we're all over on theories and predictions for the next story in the Assassin's Creed franchise. I'm getting excited just thinking about the possibility. Seriously, how hasn't this been done already? The possibilities for Assassin's Creed are insane, leading perfectly into my next and final point, endless possibilities. You could do whatever you wanted with this. Stories spanning multiple genres, all about assassins throughout history. One season could be a detective noir thriller, another could be a romantic comedy, and another could be a comedic heist. There's no overarching plot restrictions restricting the writers. As long as what is being made is compelling and the characters are layered, they could go absolutely crazy with how these stories are told to us. And I'd love to see some of the really creative ideas that assassins could be involved in. So, those are my basic pitches for two versions of Assassin's Creed, the series, whatever we'll call it. Probably just Assassin's Creed, to be honest. I'm gonna take that again. So those are my basic pitches for two versions of Assassin's Creed, the series, whatever you want to call it. Probably just Assassin's Creed, to be honest. Now the real question you're probably wondering is, what do I think is the best way to adapt Assassin's Creed? Now, I love both options, for various reasons that I already gave. And honestly, I struggled to come up with a definitive answer to this question. But after weighing out what I value in a series as well as the different avenues that a show could take, I would honestly prefer option 1, the Animus approach. This approach sticks true to the source material. Like it or not, the Animus is a vital part of the Assassin's Creed franchise, and I believe that telling a solid story that has a definitive beginning, middle, and end within that framework would make for a unique and exceptional TV series if it's written well. The problem with the Animus in the video games is that there will always be more games. So whilst the assassin stories are coming to an end, the overall modern day narrative just keeps going on for infinity. Within the framework of a TV series, that modern day story will have an end. And I believe that Animus could provide us with an exceptional character-driven story about learning from the past to better the future. I believe that if the intent is held true throughout the series, Assassin's Creed could be one of the best shows ever made if the Animus is used correctly. What do the rest of you think though? Is the Animus approach your go-to method to adapt Assassin's Creed? Or would you prefer the traditional anthology approach? Heck, would you hate an anthology-type Assassin's Creed entirely? Do you want a whole series focused on one assassin? Give me your thoughts down below, and if you've gotten this far, like and subscribe. Let's chat about Assassin's Creed. If you have things you'd like to see adapted into the series, or ideas for really cool plot points, throw those in the comments too. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Thanks so much everyone, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time with a brand new video.